Back in 2010, 2011, I had met a boy, and I met him on Facebook. I don't know when I might have added him or when he might have added me, but all I know is that he was my Facebook friend. He used to start he had started messaging me randomly, just telling me like, oh, that's a nice picture, or just commenting on my stuff. So we would converse back and forth, and then he eventually asked me out, and we exchanged phone numbers, and we began to talk on the regular. So we began to see each other at that point. um Shortly after, he asked me, could we, become boyfriend and girlfriend. I liked him. I thought he was nice, he was tall, he was fine. He was my type. um at that time, 2010, 2011, he told me that he was in school, he was in college, and I was like, okay, that's cool, you know what I'm saying. um at that time, I too was in college as well as working. I did have a small daughter at that time, so I was like, I'm down. This guy's nice. Um so not only did he tell me that he was in college, he wasn't working. So what he did tell me was that he actually had a trust fund, and he just basically had a savings account that he's living off of. He told me that his aunt stays with him because he's the one, who has the money, the trust fund and everything like that. And basically that he takes care of her because she was disabled. Now when I met this man, he had a Escalade truck. He just fairly well. He seemed really put together. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, he said that he had a trust fund, and he was in college. So I didn't have a problem with that, him being in college, because a man whose education is top of his list, I'm all for that. So months go past. Things are okay with us. Not really any arguing and things like that. Um, but I just start to notice some things, small things. It was things like, he would have to leave, when he would spend the night, or when he would come over, because he would say like, oh, my aunt needs this, my aunt needs that. It was just seemed like his aunt was very needy. But also I didn't have a problem with that, because at the same time, like I said, he did mention that his aunt had a disability, but she also had a boyfriend as well who stayed with them. So, I didn't have a problem with that. Now, this is where the issue came in. I noticed that he had like a temper. Sometimes he would get mad and he'd do like some yelling a little bit, like kind of like a man, that kind of thing. So one day we were in the house hanging out at my house, and he just out the blue kind of flipped out. He was like, I'm not understanding why you're not pregnant yet. Why aren't you getting pregnant? What the fuck is going on? And I'm like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Because he and I had not talked about um having children or anything like that. That was not something that we consciously sat around and said that this is something that we want from each other. Not that we were doing anything to prevent it, because we were not. I will be honest about that. But there was not one time where we both sat and said we want to have children, and that there was a time frame. Mind you, we are not even 6 months into dating at this time. So I was just like, okay, that was strange. Because he had previously told me about a story about an ex where he claimed that she faked a pregnancy. I don't know how true that was at that time. Um, but again, that was none of my business. So I want to say maybe another month or two passed, and I started to feel weird. I was like, something is not right with me. Um, I think I remember feeling like I had a uh what do you call that? Like an empty pit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ever just felt so hungry that you feel like your stomach is touching your back? I feel like that's how I started to feel a lot of the time. Like my stomach was touching my damn back. Like I would wake up starving, go to sleep starving. It was like I could never get full. So I was like, damn, let me take a pregnancy test. Maybe I need to see if I'm pregnant. So um I took a pregnancy test, and um it came out, it said I was pregnant. So he seemed very happy about it. He did not have an issue when I told him I was pregnant. But during this time, he was staying at my house. By this time, I believe that we had actually moved in. together. Well, he moved in with me. So I had a laptop, but I barely used the laptop because I didn't really have a reason to. When I would go to school, I would just use the computers at the school. Um, very seldomly did I actually bring home homework because I would just do my schoolwork at school. So he would use my computer most of the time because, like I said, he was also a college student. So I allowed him to use the computer to do his schoolwork because, hey, why not? So when I found out that I was pregnant, I said, okay, let me see that computer because at this time I said I need to, look up some resources. I need to, find me a OBGYN. At that time I had a gynecologist but not an OBGYN. And for my previous pregnancy, I did not want to use the same OBGYN. So I asked him to let me see the computer, in which he handed me the computer. So I get on the computer and um I go to my email because in my email I'm like, I know I have the name of my old OBGYN, just based off of emails that I might have had from like my chart or something like that. I To be honest, I don't even remember the specific reason why I went in my email, but I went straight to my email. Now, when I go to my email, um, I'm not realizing that this is not my email account. So I go into the email and I see emails from Craigslist. It says Craigslist men looking for men. Like there's hundreds of emails. I'm talking about back to back to back to back to back to back to back. So I'm like, what the hell? So that's when I realized this is not my email account. This is not my email account. So I'm like, I know good and goddamn well. I did not just find out I'm pregnant. And in the same breath, I'm finna find out that this man like other men. So I go and I start opening up the emails. I'm like, so it's Craigslist again. Craigslist men looking for men. Y'all remember when Craigslist was popping back in the day? You can do some anything on Craigslist, from buying a house, buying dogs, buying a car, everything. So I opened up one of the email chains, and it's between him and a white man. And because I knew this was a white man, because the white man sent him a picture of himself. So the message starts, and the man says, "Hi, what are you on here looking for?" And he says, "Well, I don't." His response was, "I don't know. I've never done this before." And the guy says, "Well, send me a photo of you, and let's go from there." So he sends him a picture of him, and the guy says, "Wow, you're very handsome." And he's like, "Thanks." And at that point, I stopped. I stopped looking. I'm like, I don't. I start crying. I start crying. I'm talking about I'm snot nose boohooing because I'm like, what the fuck? It was so many more emails, and I did not go through them. I was just devastated. And he's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" He's asking what's wrong, and I'm just not saying anything. I'm just crying, and I'm just crying, and I'm just crying. And I at this point I just didn't even know what to do. I'm just crying, and I'm shaking. I am like, not I'm pregnant by a man who is not even into me. What the fuck is going on? So I'm trying to think of how am I gonna confront this man, because I don't I know how fragile men's ego is. And I'm like, I just found out I'm pregnant. I don't want him to beat my ass up in here trying to confront him about wanting to be with other men. What the fuck can I actually, how do I confront this man about this? So I was like, let me send him an email.